All right, here we are. Second video in our series about reducing stress through automation. This is probably going to be a short one, not a lot to cover here, but worth bringing up. When you're writing tools, it's good to think about reuse. Is this tool I'm thinking about, is it going to be generic? Can it be used in a lot of different contexts? Or is it kind of close to being generic so that maybe I can add a little more to it or take a little off of it to make it a generic tool? I have two files to look at to walk through this. So in my previous project, we had some cloud machines, some EC2 machines that were set up by the evaluation team that was evaluating our system. They set these up for us and we could deploy our code there and deliver our code through there and test our code there. And so I was dealing with these machines a lot, and I was using the SCP command to move things back and forth. And I'm just going to show you the usage command here for the script I wrote that was called ec2.py. And so the first argument here was just A, C, or D. So over time, we had 4 machines total, and we just called them EC2A, EC2B, CD. Something happened to EC2B, it went away, it crashed, and so we were left with 3, this last round of work. And so this argument just says, which one of those machines am I going to be working with? And so by just having A, C, or D, I don't have to remember the IP address of these particular machines. That's a win. And then I have a command and a couple of arguments possible. So when I first wrote this, the reason I needed it was I was moving scene files. And this was a specific type of file that I wanted to move into a specific place. And so there's a logic in here that knows the root directory of where scene files go. And so I'm thinking this destination directory is probably a relative path off of there. I also at some point needed enough times to send zips of bundles of scenes. And so that's probably when I put this command there. So it would send the zip, unzip it into the right place. The important thing to note is that eventually I realized, wait, I have this script that's interacting with my EC2 machines. And pretty often I want to move a file either from my machine to there or from that machine to my machine. And so why don't I add a get file and put file, because the logic is almost already there in these other commands. And so I put those on there. I used this frequently, daily, pretty much when I was doing my project. Part of my workflow on this project was to generate Apptainer containers for each code drop from each of the 3 sub-projects in our project. And so part of that process was to publish the container, which means I would build a container on my Office machine, and then I would need to ship that 8 or 10 gigabyte file over to the EC2 machines. And from there, teammates could pull them down if they needed to run the containers on their machines. And so this was basically just another chance for me to move a file from my machine to the other machine, but it was adding the value of knowing where to put it because the containers were going to a particular place. So publish container here, all it really was a Python script that invoked my other tool, which was ec2py. And so this meant I didn't have to write that code again. I could just reuse this utility. Now, to make this utility reusable, it had to be generic enough. It had to do something basic like just moving a file back and forth. So as you're working with your tooling landscape, keep your eyes open for opportunities to make tools generic enough so that they plausibly could be reusable, because I wasn't really thinking about this publish problem back when I wrote the other tool. It just evolved and I said, oh, I have this, I'll just reuse that. And that was nice, saved me a little bit of time. And if something changed with how things needed to flow at that bottom level, probably be the same thing that would need to be changed for this publish process too. One last detail about this publish container script that is worth bringing up. So here I'm using my ec2.py script to move the files, and the sif path, the apptainer container, is a something.sif file, and so I have the path to that file here. But the way this command is invoked, and I'll just go to the usage statement up here, notice that the second argument for publish, like the first one is which machine to aim it to, and the second is not the file to move. I'm specifying the path of the optics spec. Now, if you've seen my video where I covered the spec file pattern, I made a point of saying that this spec path was the argument to many commands, and what it did was it let me put all the parameters that needed to characterize all the details of the run into one file that could then be referred to as one argument in these commands. So when I was writing this, the first thing that occurred to me was, okay, publish container, the first argument is going to be the machine, second argument is going to be the sif file. That makes perfect sense. But then I thought to myself, so I have 30 commands that all use the spec path, and I'm going to have one that uses the sif path. Wouldn't it be less confusing to just use the spec path here and derive the path of the sif file, which was easy to do from information within the spec file? So I did that, and it was great. I never had to break my flow because I typed the wrong thing, because I forgot, oh, this time it's the sif file and not the spec file. So uniformity of how you invoke things is another way of reducing stress, because every time you lose your flow and you break out of what you want to be thinking about, it's a tiny little nugget of stress and an opportunity to give an exasperated sigh. And if it's been a bad day, it's an opportunity to kick the chair or whatever. So yes, that was just something I thought I'd mention, because it doesn't make perfect intuitive sense that I would be having an argument for a publish command that isn't the thing I want to publish, but it just simplified my dashboard. I didn't have to remember a specific thing about this one command. It's got different arguments. All right, I think that's it for now on this. I will see you in the next video.